Hey everybody, welcome to Rock and Roll Shin-Soo. My name is Gabe Estel. We're here for episode number 47 and we are excited to deliver it to you. I'm here with my co-hosts Dennis Levi Leach and Jonathan Getz. How's it going, guys?
77 and balmy.
Right on.
Right?
Good deal.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's dive right into this sucker. We're going to just go over the agenda here. We're going to lead off with Sturgill Simpson's new single, recently released. Everybody's pretty excited about his follow-up to his record that was really great from a couple of years ago. And then we're talking about a little bit about Crosby, Stills, and Nash, a breakup, perhaps. It looks that way. And then also we're going to share some of our favorite opening acts in light of some recent news of two classic acts that are going to share a bill here next month in Las Vegas. And then we're going to give you a little bit of a recap of the top 2015 free agents. Now, that's kind of old news at this point, but spring training has started, and you may have forgotten about where folks landed.
And that's okay. It's okay
Yes.
to admit that you forgot.
Exactly.
I don't know where David Price is.
Yeah, right. Who is he?
I think he's been in 4 towns this offseason.
Right. So we're going to do kind of a recap, like who were the big people to move. Because right now, spring training started. They're starting to show games. I was able to, I got to watch a couple games over the weekend, so that were little bits of them. So that was nice, and it's fun to see people in new uniforms. So we're just going to do a little recap of the big free agent signings and maybe a couple of the trades as well, and then maybe talk a little bit about some of the guys that are still hanging out there as well on the free agent list. All right, let's go ahead and begin with talking about promising. I don't know if you could call him a newcomer because he has been around for a little while now.
Couple albums.
Yeah, a couple albums. But his last album from 2014 really generated a lot of buzz as being sort of an unorthodox country music record for the 21st century. And when I say unorthodox, meaning that it doesn't sound like Luke Bryan or Florida Georgia Line. So the artist's name is Sturgill Simpson, and he gets thrown into the outlaw country genre, which I know can kind of a generic label, but that's, if you Google the guy and read reviews of his music or interviews with him, it's an adjective that's going to come up quite a bit. So I wanted to get you guys' take on the new tune, as well as maybe just your takes on Sturgill too.
Sure. Yeah. I'll start. I'll start, Levi. I was introduced to Sturgill, his 2014 record, Meta Modern Sounds of Country Music. And I just really dug both, like you said, his more rootsy outlaw country tone, but incorporating more contemporary production methods and other sounds, almost like classic rock sounds or synths even.
Kind of a psychedelic sound too.
Psychedelics, absolutely. And then his attitude is, you could tell it's different than your average country music. He's had some legendary posts, I think, on his Facebook page, railing against the country establishment. Highly recommend checking those out. And then to hear this new tune off of the album Sailor's Guide to Earth that's going to come out in April. This new tune, Brace for Impact, and the first half of it, I was like, okay, this is cool. It's kind of classic country, and then all of a sudden it just goes into this other space, almost Pink Floyd like, with this crunching synth and kind of got some blistering guitars in there, and I was like, oh,
I didn't really start paying attention until that part. I got to be honest.
Exactly.
I'm not saying the first part of the song's bad, but it didn't have much of an impact on me,
Right, but it showed. It's like, okay, he's doing his thing, and then he does that the last 2 minutes, and it's like, oh, he's taking this kind of to another level. So he's taking, this stuff from the far left and the far right, not apolitically speaking, and he's turning it into this new evolution of country music.
Yeah, I totally agree. I like Sturgill Simpson a lot. I think it's, I don't always think it's fair to lump them into the outlaw country thing, nor is it fair to other artists like Shooter Jennings or Lucas Nelson, just because that's maybe where those guys' relatives came from. But
sure, they can't escape it, really.
Yeah. And because Shooter did this like 2010 or 11, he had he had a record that was like psychedelic country called
Wolf,
Black Ribbons.
Or Black Ribbons, okay.
And it's like Stephen King is a narrator on it, and it's about like an apocalypse at the end of the world.
Yeah.
It's like a crazy, and so it's unfair to label them as that. I think sometimes I just wish that back in the 60s or 70s there were definite lines, but they used to call just most of it rock. You know what I mean? It was rock music.
Yeah.
And so the Flying Burrito Brothers were called a rock band.
Yeah. It's all relative.
Sure.
Yeah. And I like it. I wish there was more out there like this. Hopefully if he can sustain another popularity, growth with another great album, hopefully it can bring more artists that we'll be able to see as well, because I like this genre. I think there's whatever genre people want to call it. I think there's definitely a space for it.
Let's call it flexible country, and I mean that in a good way.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's covering In Bloom, or Nirvana's In Bloom, on this new record, so he's showing that he is flexible, and probably on purpose.
Yeah, and we keep bringing up Shooter, or we have just inevitably because he's sort of one of the, I don't know, I guess the newer outlaw country musicians, and it seems like this is I like Shooter stuff, but I'm remiss to sort of recall a lot of it right now, even though I've heard all of Shooter's records. You know what I mean? I not a lot of it stands out to me, whereas the album of Sturgill's that came out in 2014, it definitely made a good impression on me. I have to admit I don't listen to country as much as I used to. Like about 10 years ago, I was really big on the outlaw sound. I was discovering all these people. You know what I mean? Like I didn't really listen to Townes Van Zandt when I was in high school. So that came along later, and Rodney Crowell, and Steve Young, and
Steve Earle.
Steve Earle. You guys know him, right? So over the last probably near the end of college is when I really started listening to all that stuff heavily, and I kind of put it down for a little while. So it's been nice for Sturgill to sort of resurrect some of those sounds, but also sort of put his own stamp on it too.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's so young. I guess I don't know how old he is, but in terms of his catalog,
I didn't realize, and I guess it leads to the title of the new record. I can't remember off the top of my head what it is, but it has a nautical reference.
A Sailor's Guide to Earth.
Yeah, he was in the Navy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would assume he's at
backstory.
least in his mid-20s.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him live yet, but I've heard his band's pretty tight too. I've heard he's got a pretty good crew with him.
I'm excited to finally see him live. Last time he was in town, I wasn't able to. I had prior obligations, but I got a feeling it'll be well worth the wait when I finally do. He was born in 1978. He's 37 years old.
Okay.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah, definitely get a ticket. It'll sell out.
Get a ticket. I don't think those tickets are going to last long.
It'll sell out.
Yeah. So I had a chance to see him this summer too, and it fell through. And Buddy had the ticket. He was playing at the Metro after his Lollapalooza show, so it was like an after.
Oh yeah, nice.
And just couldn't make it, and I regret it now, certainly.
Yeah.
So yeah. One to watch, as they say.
CBS Sunday morning.
Yes. All right. So going now to guys with acoustic guitars, a little bit older, but Crosby, Stills, and Nash. There was an article posted on Classic Rock magazine that I shared with Jonathan and Levi that talked about I guess they're breaking up apparently, but that band's had a lot of they've broken up several times, so it's kind of just who I take this with a grain of salt, I suppose, even though they had quotes from the members saying that
these are amazing quotes, by the way.
Yeah, we will have to highlight some of these. Jonathan, I hope you have them pulled up.
Yeah.
Somebody.
I do. I have them ready.
So list one of them here, or read one of them.
So I'll be Graham Nash right now.
Okay.
Quote, but I don't like David Crosby right now. He's been awful to me these last 2 years, just fucking awful. I've been there and saved his fucking ass for 45 years, and he treated me like shit. You can't do that to me. You can do it for a day or so until I think you're going to come around, but when it goes on longer and I keep getting nasty emails from him, I'm done. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm gonna read those emails.
The main takeaway of this article is David Crosby's an effing prick. And I want to believe it, because I've heard other stories in the past, like especially in some of the days where he was in his heavy partying days, of him just being like a crazy asshole and waving guns around and stuff. And I like the Neil Young quote. Crosby talks about Neil Young.
The David Crosby comment after Neil Young said that he didn't want anything to do with CSN. The David Crosby
like, fuck that.
Well, David Crosby says that's like saying there are mountains in Tibet. We know, Neil. We already knew.
That's great. Oh, that's great. I mean, this has been kind of a contentious crew. I mean, ever for 45 years.
Right, and it's just it's always surprising because it belies the music itself.
Sure.
Oh,
yeah. Right. Absolutely. And I don't know what Steven Stills thinks. I don't think he was quoted in the article, but yeah. So I have to admit, I've seen CSNY on one of the somewhat recent reunion tours. I think 2002.
I was gonna say
because they've done like 3 or 4 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Since
I saw them around that same time.
Yeah. And it was great. I had a lot of fun. And CSN seems like they've toured pretty regularly.
And that's who I've only seen CSN.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, I haven't seen them without Neil, which, with all due respect to those guys, and it's some of the best voices in rock and roll. There's the excitement factor goes down a little bit for me.
Oh, dude, he made the show I was at. If Neil Young wasn't there, the show would not have been that good.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, those guys are getting up there in age. Obviously, that's one. But the strength of material without Neil just isn't there either.
Right.
So I wanted to segue though, guys, to the next point. I put this in the notes here. Outside of CSN. So let's take Neil out of the equation here completely, all right? Because it's just not really a fair competition. So CSN, those 3 guys, outside of the CSN work, what's your favorite work by David Crosby, Steven Stills, or Graham Nash? It's a pretty easy one for me, but I want to hear from you guys first.
I was gonna say I think it's definitely got to be Stills.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. I think, the 2 coolest guys, for one, left and made their own band, the Stills Young Band.
Right.
Right. So,
long may you run.
The first solo Stills record has like appearances by Clapton and Hendrix. That record's excellent.
Yeah.
Stills did the Super Sessions album with Bloomfield and Cooper. Mike Bloomfield, now Cooper.
Yeah, that's
the Manassas Stills record is excellent.
It's kind of a classic.
Like I said, the Stills Young Band record, Long May You Run. Yeah, it's
Stephen and Neil had a history too,
for sure.
Buffalo Springfield prior to, so obviously there's I don't know if kindred spirits is the right
there's a creativity connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
50 years of it,
Mm-hmm.
Good point. I like those first 2 Stephen Stills records quite a bit, and then Al Cooper, Bloomfield, right?
Super Session, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I've got that on vinyl. Yeah, good choice. I always like to see him in the football jersey back then.
Right?
Always have like that Cleveland Browns jersey on. That wouldn't be my choice though. As my favorite. I like those first 2 Stills records a lot. But Jonathan, what about you? What's
admittedly, I do favor Neil so much to the point that I don't listen to the other solo stuff from CSN as much, that being said,
a lot to choose from if you're interested.
Right?
Got about 40 albums between the three. So
yeah, and it kind of depends what kind of mood I'm in, and if I'm feeling a little bit more lighthearted and optimistic, go with Graham Nash. Otherwise, I do really like the crunch that David Crosby brings, especially on if I could only remember my name, which I think is, I think I like it more than Manassas, though it is close. So from my more distant perspective, I think I would go with Crosby.
You gotta, you stole mine there. If I could only remember my name's a great record, man. It's a really great record. It's much better than anything else he ever did, I think. Solo.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, I was going to say, personally, I just always felt he never added a ton to CSNY or CSN. Like, I don't know. I mean, I
almost cut my hair.
Well, I mean, I don't know, man. I could have always done without him sometimes.
I don't know about that. I still like the guy.
But I mean, I really like Stills and Young a lot. I wasn't that even into the Byrds when Crosby was into them, when he was in them. I liked the Byrds when it was like later.
Oh yeah,
era. The later like Roger McGuinn just basically led era of the
Parsons.
Byrds.
Yeah. I guess Graham was in the Byrds too
for a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Something about Crosby always rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know why.
I'm not saying he's not a dick.
yeah. I mean, he's sure.
From what I've heard, from what Graham told me.
Yeah, but I think if I could only remember my name, I mean, I like it as much as I like some Neil Young records. Not all Neil Young records, but some of them. Yeah. I mean, Cowboy Song or Cowboy Movie. Yeah. The Music Is Love, the opener. Oh, it's haunting, man. Yeah. I mean, and granted, like, he was on a heavy amount of drugs, too, during that as well. Yeah. Hanging out with Dennis Hopper all the time or something. But anyway. So, yeah. So, all right.
Yeah. 2 Crosbys and a Stills.
It's a hell of a catalog, as far as volume between the three of them. I'll give them that. So yeah, well, sayonara, guys. You gave us quite a few years. All right.
Well, and poor Graham Nash is the one I think like caught in it all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, from an outsider's perspective, it just seems like, I don't know.
What's his big solo record? Like the one from like the early 70s?
Something like, is it Songs to Remember or something like that?
Something like that. Which is good. It's good. I mean, I think, like those guys, like between like, like whenever they broke up, which would have been like what, like 71.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Songs for Beginners.
Yeah, Songs for Beginners.
It's got like Chicago on it.
Yeah, like anything those guys were doing like 70 to like 76 is pretty solid, just because I like most music made during that time. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's all pretty listenable. I mean, what Neil was doing obviously was light years ahead of what they were doing, but I can't say as though like I dislike really anything those guys did in the 70s. Because for a while it was like Levi had said, there was Stills and Young, and then wasn't there just like Crosby and Nash?
Yeah, there was
a record.
They did a record together.
So Another Stony Evening, I think, was one of them, or maybe it was a live record. I don't know.
There's one called Wind on the Water, and it's Graham Nash and David Crosby.
I can listen to all that stuff, like I just because I like the era so much that there's nothing that really like offends me too much that was made in the 70s when you're involved in those guys too. So, all right, moving on to our next topic. There was an article posted, also I think in Classic Rock, and I'm sure it was broadcast elsewhere. Alice in Chains, who despite not having Lane Staley, is still making some really good music, are opening for the reunited Guns N' Roses in Las Vegas. So I don't know if everybody knows this, but before the Coachella shows, Guns N' Roses is doing a couple warm-up gigs in Vegas. So they're big warm-up gigs. They're at the arena. But Alice in Chains is going to open up. So that got me thinking about what are some of the best opening acts you've ever seen? And then also, part 2 of that conversation, what are some of the opening acts that were unexpectedly good because maybe you had never heard them prior to that show? So, Jonathan, why don't we start with you, man? What are some of the best openers you've ever seen?
Sure. There are the usual suspects who, like you said, I knew were good going in.
Right.
When Petty's had the Black Crows and the Drive-By Truckers, and Pearl Jam's had, My Morning Jacket, Midlake, Gomez, although I didn't see them with Gomez. Although I will note that Pearl Jam's openers have often disappointed. Where
I would agree. I was going to say the same thing.
Kind of bland. Kind of
Frank
like almost
Black solo. I'm not really interested in.
Yeah,
With all due respect to the Pixies, yeah.
And granted, I am somebody who's going to see him 3 times on a tour, sure. So when I hear the same set from the opener, like Bad Religion in '95. It's like it's entertaining at one point, but then it's you get the shtick. It almost feels like a shtick if it's like the same mannerisms. Anyway, not
they
to say
do better with their openers.
Yeah. But Midlake was a pleasant surprise when they had them open a couple years ago in Texas. So now that being said, some of the unexpected openers that blew me away. Justin Townes Earl I saw open for Wilco. And it was great because it was still light. It was outside. It was at the Crossroads, KC here in Kansas City. It was outside, so the sun was shining. He had that white seersucker suit on, and his glasses, and it just felt like a Sunday afternoon, and Justin's out there playing his thing, and that really blew me away. He converted me right then. At that point, I just kind of listened on the periphery. Other than that, seeing Mike Watt open for Mudhoney. Granted, I was already a fan of Mike Watt, so it was more kind of almost like a double bill for me. And he almost stole the show. All due respect to Mudhoney. Apostle of Hustle, who I saw open for Gogo Bordello, and finally Marat. Seeing Marat open for Government Mule in what was that, 98, 2000.
It was 99? The Life Before Insanity tour.
2000.
2000. Okay. Yeah.
One of Woody's last tours.
They were on the Kids in Philly tour.
Yeah. That was awesome.
Oh
yeah.
Excellent.
Hell yeah.
We all were there together, which is crazy. And
I remember us holding down the dance floor. In front of the stage, everybody else was back at the bar at Mississippi Nights getting drinks.
For Mariah,
and we were up there. Rocking
they were
out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, at that time, they're definitely my band that probably blew me away, not knowing who they were.
Oh yeah, I didn't even heard of them.
And and at that time, I think I went home and got on dial-up and looked them up and was like, oh wow. Steve Earle was kind of affiliated with him, had produced that record, taken him under his wing for a while, and they were amazing.
Kids in Philly's an awesome record. The one after it sucked, but then the two
they
or
had
three,
a spotty discography.
The 2 or 3 after the follow up to Kids in Philly are really solid.
That one that sucks that you're talking about. It's too bad too because Springsteen's on that record.
Right. Yeah, and I thought that was the one that was going to just bust them out.
So I was like, hell, they got Bruce with them. You could clearly hear the Bruce influence, obviously,
Yeah.
So it kind of sucks when the record that they have him on kind of blows.
But we all 3 give the thumbs up to everybody should go out and buy Kids in Philly or get it on iTunes.
I think it's one of the best records of the last 20 years.
Oh, it's excellent.
Yeah.
And, I was going to talk some more opening acts, but the situation that Jonathan mentioned about seeing was it Bad Religion open for Pearl Jam. It was seeing the Crows open for Petty, and the Crows kicked ass each time. 2 weekends in a row. One weekend St. Louis, next weekend Chicago is how I think it was, or it was reversed. And Tom Petty came out and played the same set verbatim almost. Both shows. Did the same mannerisms, the same talking in between the songs was the same, and it was just damn. I love Tom Petty. I have
Me too.
loads of Tom Petty records in the other room, but I lost just a little bit that day for with Tom Petty.
Yeah, man, it's punching a fucking time clock, man. And I loved Petty. I love Petty too. I love his band.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's just like you have a catalog that rich, and you're gonna play the exact same tunes.
Yeah.
Like the same tour. Nothing changed. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. None of the order. None of the songs. Nothing changed.
Yeah. One of the other excellent shows was I saw, and I mean I thought they would probably be good, but was Stone Temple Pilots open for Aerosmith one of the times I saw them.
No shit.
And it
was that?
excellent. I got the ticket in the other room. I'd have to go look. Early 2000s, late 90s. It's in there somewhere.
Probably late 90s.
I went to like 7 or 8 Aerosmith shows because I had a friend who was in the Air Force One fan club, and we would always get like front row tickets because he would be like, "Hey, you want to go to Aerosmith? I'll buy the tickets. You know, just pay for your ticket, but I'll get you front row."
Too bad you couldn't have chosen Aerosmith's set list. Huh?
Yeah, dude, I will say though, every time I saw Aerosmith, they put on a good show.
I bet.
And I mean, granted, you know, the last couple of the shows I went to, I had to hear their new song at the time, which was "I Don't Want to Miss a Thing." That had came out, but you know, they would follow it up with like Last Child, or they, you know what I mean? They would always, it would be like 80% old back catalog.
Sure. Yeah. I regret not seeing them. You know, like the times I've had the chance, like when they did like Toys in the Attic in its entirety a few years ago. Like I regret not going to it.
Each show was like an event. It was like, you know, it was back how I guess concerts, I can imagine in my head how they might have been with like Zeppelin in the 70s or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, they kind of touch on it a little bit in like Wayne's World. It was like that, like backstage, you know, there was just everywhere out in the crowd was just like all these older ladies that looked like, you know, they were from like the 1990 issues of Playboy. And just like, it was just like, it was a huge event to go to an Aerosmith.
Everybody's calling off work the next day.
Oh yeah. It was like an Aerosmith show was like a giant rock event.
We went down to Riverport to Aerosmith little fucking party. All
right. It was. They were. And I will say they had kind of a Pearl Jam issue where sometimes their openers would not be good at all. The time I saw them with Monster Magnet opening, it was not good at all.
Oh,
Monster Magnet.
I don't mind Monster Magnet too.
I don't know if it was just like the PA system. Yeah, it was like a weird pairing.
Yeah, it is.
The PA sounded awful for them. Like it just was like really harsh, and you could tell most of the older crowd, because you know I was in my late teens, early 20s, and most of the crowd is like 40 and 50-year-olds who were there to get drunk and see Aerosmith. They're like, who the hell are these Monster Magnet?
It's going to be a hard crowd to please if it's not Aerosmith on stage.
Yeah, but I will say, the STP time opening, STP knocked it out of the park, man.
I bet.
And I was one other one, but was kind of more of a low-key show, but was an excellent opener. I'm not sure you might have been there, Gabe. It was when Sunvolt opened for John Mellencamp.
Yeah, I went to that. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. That was good. Yeah. Unexpected.
It was late 90s, early 2000s, somewhere back
I think it was
there.
like 99, I think.
Yeah.
Like right before they broke up. Or like the original Sunvolt line broke up. Yeah. Yeah, that was good.
That's a good pairing.
Yeah, it was. It was a really... Whoever planned that tour did a pretty good job.
Yeah. For me, for established acts, we already mentioned them in the introduction to this segment. I got to see Alice in Chains with Lane Staley open for Kiss. That's awesome. The best opening act I've ever seen. Ever. That's like, and I'm not one for like declaratives, you know what I mean? But that was the best opening band I've ever seen. I mean, I knew going in, I was so stoked because it's like, I mean, this is Kiss's reunion tour. It's only like the third show in, and like rarely do like I mean, I was 17. Like I'm like, holy shit! Like I've got the hottest ticket in the country, like in my hand right now.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and not only that, like Kiss back with the makeup on, but Alice in Chains is opening up as well. Yeah.
It might as well have been Van Halen with David Lee Roth,
dude,
right?
It was the shit. It was like chains ripped. Like, I mean, granted, I'm so drawn to Jar of Flies. They didn't play any of that. Like, it was just rippers. That's it. Nice. Like just rippers. They opened up with Again, and you can find the set list, but and just the crowd was into it as well. Yeah, it was great, man. And obviously they're big Kiss fans as well, so they were pretty stoked to be opening for a reunited Kiss. So that was up there that's probably the best one I've ever caught for an established band. Another good one I'll give as a runner up is I saw Wilco at Madison Square Garden on New Year's Eve in 2004, and the opening acts were Sleater Kinney and the Flaming Lips.
Oh wow!
So yeah, that was really good, and they all everybody came out and played with Wilco too.
That's like awesome.
Sat in, yeah. So that was great. Actually, they all did War Pigs, which ripped. Yeah.
Nice.
So that's probably a second place, at least the ones that off the top of my head. And then, as Levi and Jonathan had already mentioned, seeing Marat open for Government Mule, I think I saw like 3 shows within like a week and a half of the Mule. That was a big Mule kick. They were great. And then I saw Mudhoney about 10 years ago in Chicago. And they had a band open up for them called The Cynics, who I'd never heard of. Mm-hmm. But I go home and I look them up, and they're a veteran kind of punk, but they kind of have like a garage rock sound to them as well, kind of a psychedelic, sound, but kind of more like in the vein of like the Zombies or something like that. And they were really good. I hadn't heard of them. They're from Pittsburgh. They've been around since like the mid '80s, and really good stuff. And then most recently, this is kind of nice too. I like that feeling when you've never heard of the band and you go there and they're awesome. Mm-hmm. I saw the Cult about 2 years ago, and there's a band from Cincinnati called Electric Citizen, who I've talked about on this podcast. Yeah. Female vocalist, definitely like a kind of like a Heart meets Black Sabbath sound. And they were really good, and I really dig their album that came out I think 2 years ago. I think that they were touring behind that, so that was a really pleasant surprise, and I've been into them ever since. So yeah, those were unexpected opening gems right there.
You mentioned Black Sabbath. I totally forgot. I got to see Pantera open for Black Sabbath.
Shit! Yeah.
That was an excellent show. Crazy show. Absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, good deal. We've covered some ground, guys. The three of us, when it comes to shows.
We've been to a few.
We have. So now I want to go into the last part. We're going to talk about baseball here. The free agent tracker. We're just going to kind of go through some of the highlights here because you may have forgotten who landed where. Kind of like I'm going to chunk it this way, like if you were to formulate a starting rotation of pitchers that were free agents this offseason, obviously you have David Price as your number one. Maybe not that obviously. I mean, I don't know. Zach Greinke or David Price as your number one.
Greinke, I would go number one in the playoffs.
Yeah,
I would agree with that. Yeah. So yeah, you've got Price, Greinke, Johnny Cueto goes to San Francisco. Jordan Zimmerman to the Dodgers. Or I'm sorry, not the Dodgers. What am I thinking here? Detroit. Excuse me.
Detroit, yeah.
Sorry, he went to the Tigers. And then, for other starting pitchers, I guess Samardzija. I mean, obviously he needs a bounce back year, but
he would be on the up. Yeah.
He's still despite having a bad year with the White Sox, the dude still got paid.
5 years, $90 million by the Giants. Yeah.
Yeah. So you had to come off the worst season of your career and still get that payday. Yeah. Learn how to pitch, kids. That's if anybody younger people are listening to this show.
Especially if you're left-handed.
Learn how to pitch. Yeah. So that's kind of your rotation. Right?
So Price to the Red Sox, Greinke
to Arizona.
To the Backs.
Yeah. Which I don't think anyone saw that one coming. Cueto to the Giants, Zimmerman to the Tigers, and Samardzija also to the Giants. And then around the diamond, Jason Hayward for the Cubs, the biggest probably
Lackey. Yeah, the Hayward's bigger.
Lackey. Yeah, Lackey, is maybe your sixth starter there. And then you've got Hayward, in the outfield. Other outfielders, Alex Gordon returns to Kansas City. Justin Upton, who took a little while to sign, if I remember correctly.
It's a big deal, though.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Yeah, he's on the Tigers. Yeah. So
going Detroit, from the Padres as the Padres dismantle.
Yeah, and then over at first base, you've got Chris Davis re-signed to Baltimore. So probably the guy right now in baseball that's capable of, I would say, probably putting out the highest home run total. I would say is Chris Davis. Yeah. Like he's probably the only baseball player right now who could hit 50 homers.
Yeah. We'll see what Schwarber thinks of that.
maybe, but I'm saying like right now.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I mean I don't really think about him that much, just because I even though he's a 50 home run guy, he's kind of still sort of a quiet 50 home run guy, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I don't. I'm not doing the best job of articulating it there, but for some reason I don't pay that much attention to him in Baltimore. But yeah, I mean he's a power hitter.
He did get popped. Right?
He did get popped. Yeah, he did. And then, so second base, we've got Zobrist, assuming he's going to play second for the Cubs.
35-year-old Zobrist.
Right. And for third baseman, it's not a free agent signing, but probably for trades. The White Sox landed Todd Frazier in a 3-team deal between the Dodgers, the Reds, and the White Sox. So yeah, Frazier, I would say at third, probably the biggest name to move. And then in the outfield, I'd already mentioned Hayward, but in recent days you've got Yoenis Cespedes as well in the outfield.
Who bought a pig this past week?
Who bought a pig? I like this guy more and more every day. I really
do. He spent $7,000 on the pig?
Yeah.
Something like that? Yeah.
I like this guy. I do.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was a quick free agent recap for the offseason of 2015. We're excited to head into 2016 with a lot of big names being moved, including Dexter Fowler at the very last minute there. So that certainly was probably one of the more exciting moments of this offseason. Anyway, you can find out more about us. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at RockInChew. That's N as in Graham Nash. All right, who we discussed earlier this evening. So that's RockInChew on Twitter and Instagram. You can also like our Facebook page, as well as anything that you want to know about rock and roll Shin-Soo Choo, including previous episodes, album recommendations, different references that we've made during the show. You can all find that on rockchew.com for all your baseball and music needs. Until next time, we will see everybody later. Have a good night.
Peace.
Peace.